Today we want to talk a little bit about digital minimalism, a topic I've thought about quite a bit, but haven't actually done a lot of work on, and I kind of want to talk about it today. Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, today we kind of want to get into the more esoteric or philosophical side of computer usage. And I kind of want to frame it in this way. Of course, I kind of converted about, a little over a decade ago or so to mostly minimalism. Just basically, I just don't have a need for keeping a lot of junk around. I threw away, a dumpster or two worth of things. I cut back a lot of stuff, but the one area that ended up getting worse over the last decade is actually in the area of digital files. You see, I blame Linux on this. You see, I kind of had a mostly boring computer life prior to Linux. I was a little web developer. I'm using Windows. I have some Mac going as well. Just make sure we're up to date on both the main operating systems out there. And I'm doing my basic things. I had a desktop and I had a laptop to work on. And I can't remember. I think I was at that point in time, I don't even think I had a secondary laptop. I literally think I had just the one laptop that I did my work on, and I did the desktop computer. And then, of course, I had the Mac in the corner as well, which I used for one project and just to test and, make sure that I knew how to use all of the main systems out off the top. And then, of course, I switched to Linux, so the middle computer there was now running Ubuntu. So now I have Windows over here, I have Ubuntu over here, I have Mac over here. And really that middle computer, that desktop computer, was mostly, I term it as the media PC. It's kind of like a catch-all, kind of does anything and everything type computer, but it doesn't have a lot of the main important documents on it. But then what I started to do is seeing the power of Linux and the power of having separate security and OPSEC. What I started to do is building in a couple of different operating systems for different things. So I have one operating system on a flash drive, which is just banking stuff. And that operating system, the only thing it does is it goes in and connects to bank accounts to do online banking and budgeting and running the books for my content creation business. And that's just as fine. Of course, I have another laptop, which is for basically for writing. So the only thing on that is just a few things related to current projects I'm working on. And now I've been using a Raspberry Pi as like a quote-unquote work computer, the desktop stuff. So I have a laptop, which when I'm traveling about or visiting people, I can still get some work done there. Now, of course, because of switching to Linux, there's so many other things. I have a media server one. We have a NAS server. I have a secondary laptop, which I got to stream and to do video production stuff in the event my big streaming computer dies. Oh, yeah, we have the streaming computer now, too. So it got to the point where, while most of my life maintained being minimalistic, as comes to files, not quite so much, because now, unfortunately, I feel like I have files all over the place, and that really is a source of stress. You see, I don't know if you're the same way I am, and I think most people are this way, whether you recognize it or not. When you're in a more cluttered area, you get a lot less done. Hoarders' houses become horribly hoarded because they have so much clutter, it gets to the point where they have no motivation to even clean up anymore. And just the simple task of taking out the garbage for some of these people can become too burdensome. So if you look around in your physical space, if your physical space becomes cluttered up, it can really wear down on your productivity. This is why I make sure at least a couple times a week I'm going to clean off my whole desktop surface, make sure everything is dealt with, put everything nice and neatly and cleanly away, and get back to just a perfectly good, clean, sanitized surface so I can focus on things. Unfortunately, my computer files also get messed up. Now, I do occasionally take a chance to clean up my computer files. Sometimes they get cleaned up a little bit better than others, but sometimes that just means, like you tell your kid to go clean the bedroom and he just takes all the toys and shoves them under the bed or in the closet or something like that. If all you're doing is shuffling your folders and your files around, well, you're not doing a whole lot and you're actually kind of making it worse. Now, curiously, at the beginning of this month, as I set monthly goals, one of the things I actually put on my goals is to clean up the computer files, basically get everything organized on at least half of these computers around here, and streamline things down to the point where I just don't feel like I just have constant files in every single direction. Make sure everything has a good backup home. Make sure we're not backing up excessive files. Like I looked in my banking or my backup archives recently. I have the copy of what I do to back up my banking operating system, for example. I think I have one from every month going back to like 2020. Do I need all those? No, they're cumulative updates. Maybe let's keep one from last year in the event of catastrophicness. Let's keep one from 6 months ago, and maybe we'll keep the last 3 months and we'll call it good. Let's delete everything else. That's the type of stuff that you might want to do. Now, this is very timely because even though I had that listed on a goal list at the beginning of the month, curiously, I find this nice article from Tech Radar, and it was about this very topic. So I wanted to go ahead and talk about this. And then what I'm going to do is, before I'm recording this video when things are still a mess, and I'm going to take at least 1 or 2 of these computers here. I'm going to completely clean them up. I'm going to organize all of the files, get the solid backup strategy going, and kind of end this video with one of these computers as being a total mess to now very cleaned up. And let's see, can we keep things a little bit more tidy going forward? But let's go ahead and have a look at what this article says. Digital data decluttering could save you hundreds of dollars every year. Here's how you can do it. It says people are spending a fortune on digital storage rather than hitting delete. Now, where they're going with here, they're kind of talking about cloud storage. I don't use a lot of cloud storage. I have my Nextcloud instance, but most of my backups and storage is not in cloud storage. Hey, maybe I should look into that. Maybe get a little bit of cloud storage I control so that next time my NAS hard drive crashes, I don't have to wait to get back to home office, especially since I'm on the road. Maybe we could think about that. But I have other solutions in mind for that. So mostly they're focused on these cloud storages. They project here that the younger generations could spend as much as $40,000 on cloud storage across their lifetime. It's a lot of money. Now, $40,000 over an entire lifetime isn't outrageously expensive, but it's still pretty stinking bad. They say Americans admit to hoarding digital files, 77% saying they have too much data, and managing their files leaves a third of people feeling overwhelmed and anxious. Now, I'm not sure if I'm the overwhelmed and anxious mode or if I'm just like, hey, let's stop and think about this. Maybe I need to have a little bit better, because in reality, I have work files on this computer, work files on that computer. Fortunately, I don't have them on my media PC or on my streaming computer, because those all have completely different things. But on each of those individual computers, I have a lot of files that aren't properly organized, not backed up. Particularly my media PC is horrendous for this. I download files and don't always organize them. So that's something that needs worked on. I might need to move files from one system to put them into my backups. And, basically, I want to get things as cleaned up and organized as possible. So they have some interesting ideas down here, and I wanted to cover this article, and then we'll get into my own decluttering on digital files. Americans are facing growing digital clutter problem, according to recent surveys. Around 77% of people admitted, unsurprisingly, to have more files than they need. So this gets back to where I'm looking at it. I have all of these banking backup files, and basically what this means is it's a copy of my GNU Cache business file. So it has the historical data going back 5 or 6 years at this point in time. It has on it the financial records, but the raw log that I keep on a LibreOffice spreadsheet. It has some of the files that I do. It'll have copies of the bank statements that are downloaded and things like this. And then what happens is, like every month or so, maybe every 2 months at most, I'm going to make a zip archive and drop all those important files in, and then drop a copy of that on my NAS. So now my NAS has like 35 of these files, but you can see from the process they're all cumulative. There's no reason to have that many versions of that file. Even though there's not a lot of them, it makes sense to say, hey, we're only going to keep a certain number of these. Now, could I automate that? I could. I actually could automate what we're keeping on that, but I generally don't like the automated because way back a long time ago, I was relying on an automated system. And when I did have a data crash, I found out that the automated system wasn't working as well. And that's maybe my fault for not verifying the automated. That's something you can do. But it boils down to, I have known this has been a problem for a long time that I've wanted to address. And so now here we get this article near the end of the month when I have not yet achieved that monthly goal, kind of kicking and poking and prodding and yelling at me to actually take a step. So, hey, I thought it'd be a great video. Maybe you guys will enjoy it too. It says 1/3 say managing their files made them feel overwhelmed, anxious, or stressed. I don't feel managing them causes the stress for me. I feel knowing that they're unmanaged causes some stress. Like this last couple weeks has just been absolutely insane for me. And what I found insanity was stopping, not getting up the videos. That's why I didn't have videos the first part of this week, and saying, let me just get a few of these little weird things out of my way and be done with them. Let me just do that. That's really ultimately what it boiled down to. So costly habit. Digital clutter is not just a minor inconvenience. It can be costly as well. They talk about storage prices climbing, 3% inflation rate, assuming 25-year-old pays $20 a month for data storage until the age 85. They'll spend $40,000 over their lifetime on digital storage. Okay, that sounds like a reasonable number. Like not reasonable to pay, but that seems like a good estimate. Sounds good. Data centers partner with digital expert minimalist Keith Younger to inspire and assist people in cleaning their files. So they have delete digital dust bunnies is a link there. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time over there. There's a lot there. What I'm just going to do is look what they're doing. So they talk about a little bit about how to declutter, taking small regular steps. This is what I say, let's get this organized and then keep on it. So what I might do is say, we're going to say one calendar day, maybe the last Friday of the month or something like that. Let's stop and say the only thing we're doing is managing all of the files from the previous month. Let's boot up each computer. Let's make sure every file is where it should be. Let's make sure every backup is where it should be. And this way I get a chance to have all of the files and extra backups. I have things organized and now we're pretty much set to go. All right, so they say clean out your photo library. This is a great idea. In fact, one of the things I did, I used to take a lot of photos. I got my first digital camera, of course, close to 20 years ago, snapping a lot of photos. Oh, you can take a lot. Of course, back then I could fit, 1,000 files on a 32 megabyte card. They were really small file sizes. Well, file sizes, like single pictures these days, like 3-4 megabytes. These things add up. So what they say here is this great option. Look through your files if you take them, delete everything that's blurry, and delete old screenshots. I'm notorious. I have about 300 screenshots on my phone because I do the screenshots, and then as I journal about where I go, I usually delete the screenshots. But because of things earlier this year, I just haven't had a chance to do much of journaling or cleaning the screenshots. So that needs done. But the other thing I started to do a while back, and I haven't done it for a while, but I've done it a few times, is I've taken some of those files and it's like, do I really need a full massive 4K version of all these photos? Generally, no. So I ran a lot of my photos through a downscale process just to get them down to a reasonable size, let's say a little under a megabyte. And that way I was actually able to save them. But just deleting the blurry shots, removing the duplicates and things like that can go a long way. Do the same thing with videos and things like that. If you have receipts and things, this is a contentious one. By my nature, I'm kind of an archivist. Okay. So I still have tax records going back to 1996. But one of the things I did as far as minimalism was concerned is I shredded all those old papers and I scanned everything in. So yes, I have digital files, but I have digital files in a very organized digital place. They're not in my way. They're there for archival because I'm a nerd and I like looking at that stuff from time to time, but they're not scattered all over the place or weird haphazard places. They're in a very organized place with a very organized data backup structure. So those files aren't the problem. It's the random things I've downloaded, the random files I've done, the random receipts I've collected, just the random stuff that gets scattered across every system that I'm working with. They also say down here, consider a simple backup system with external hard drives instead of paying for cloud storage. This is what I do a lot of. Now, of course, you have to, number one factor is you want to make sure that you have a couple copies because drives do go bad. So let's say we have a couple copies in case one drive goes bad, the other drive likely didn't. You also want to make sure you have on-site and off-site copies. So I keep copies in a safe. I have a safe at a friend's house, and I keep a copy of all of my files in that safe in addition to keeping a copy with me. And I have, of course, other archives in my storage unit. So if I didn't live the van life thing, I would still have a copy at a friend's house, a copy at my house, and then I might have a copy of files in a safety deposit box as well. And so that'll cut you on your storage fees, cut out of that $40,000 storage fees, but you might end up buying way more drives than you need if you haven't gone through and deleted some of the old files and organized the ones and downscaled things if you needed to. Like, do you really need 4K versions of some of the cute videos you take from time to time? Consider using software like Handbrake and scale those down into a 720p or something unless you really need that 4K version. I don't know. They also recommend, as I said, schedule a spring cleaning day a couple times a year. I said I might do this once a month. I have once a month for data backups anyway. Let's do once a month, organize files, and then do data backups. That sounds like a good thing to do. And then being more mindful will help you move forward. So that's kind of what was inside of the article here. And so that really is what my goal is going to be, is I want to look across these files. So I'll show you here some pictures of just some of the mess that I have to deal with. So some of the before photos, and then here I'll show you a few after photos, how clean everything looks. So there is what that looks like. And of course, we'll come on in a couple days when I am done with this, and we'll show you what the process looks like. And I'll explain to you what I thought or learned or how I did it. Of course, most of this footnotes are going to be relying on Open Media Vault quite a bit for some backups, and then just some good old-fashioned backup strategies. So there's where we are. Let's go ahead and wrap up the video in a few days. It's been a couple of days since I recorded the first half of the video. I want to come back and talk a little bit about what I've learned and what I have done. So as of this date, I have completely done the main work computer, which is the Raspberry Pi, and I have done the NAS drive. That was basically, I started with the NAS. I looked through there. I looked at every single folder. I looked in every single file. I ended up clearing up, I think I ended up clearing up about 30 gigabytes of data off of that. That was all extra, redundant, or so old it was unnecessary. What I didn't do yet is I didn't go through all of the photos and delete unnecessary photos out of there. That's something that probably also needs done. That's going to be a whole day's project, though. It's going to be a trip through memory lane, too. I have a lot of photos. So we'll go ahead and flip through all those and have a look here. Maybe this weekend I'll at least get a start on it. However, the biggest priority is to get that media PC cleaned up. That's going to be the biggest hump over this. So I haven't done that one yet, but what you saw photos of before and after was that was the work computer, the Raspberry Pi. That got all cleaned up. Looks very nice now. The NAS also is all cleaned up and very nice. I didn't take photos of that because there's so many different files there. So here's a couple things I've learned. Number one thing I've learned is that sometimes we just throw extra files over there and we just have this habit of I'll deal with this later, I'll deal with this later, I'll deal with this later, and later never comes. And that's what happens that leads to having just this mishmash of files everywhere. So one of the things I started doing a while ago, which has worked, is I have a folder on each computer. It says something like to NAS or to server, and every file that eventually is going to get into backups all just gets dumped into that folder, and then that gets dumped onto the NAS. And then when I do my master backups, that folder gets dumped sort it into my backups. All my backups get the 3-part backup strategy I do, and then I clear it out of the NAS, and then I go back to the other computers and clear all those out. That is a huge thing that really helped. So that allowed me to clear off a lot of data and make sure that everything got sorted effectively. The key is to schedule time to specifically do those types of things. When do you have time to manage it? So building in that time to specifically deal with files that you have accumulated over the course of the last month is going to be a huge key to success going forward. So that is definitely something. The next thing that I learned is sometimes collecting too many files, we lose stuff. As I was going through the NAS, I actually found some files that I thought I had lost, and I've looked for a few other places, including on the NAS. They were just in a weird, obscure spot. So I cleaned things up over there to make sure things on the NAS get sorted properly the first time, so I don't have a mishmash of things within that as well. And so for that, just make sure that you're not keeping so many extra things that there's just too much stuff there to actually sort through. So maybe you take a little bit more proactive thoughts as to what's going on where. The next thing that I learned about the work computer specifically is as people are asking me to do different things on different projects, things just kind of got haphazardly thrown into different areas. So there's still one folder that probably still has a lot more data that can be removed, sorted, or organized, but I got to look a little bit closer at it. That's going to take a little bit of time, but everything all is nice, neat, clean, and organized now, where at least I can step in and do a better job of getting all of that organized out. So that's kind of where we're at as far as that's concerned. So what is next? Well, the next thing I'm actually going to do is spend this weekend, and I want to do a master data backup and sort through the files over on the media PC. And I'm setting that as the only goal because I have a few other repair projects I need to do. I need to repair my heater and I need to repair my chair. Those are 2 big projects I have this weekend that are not data related. So there's those. Outside of that, sorting through all of the data is kind of my high priority this weekend. So hopefully we'll go into next week. At least one more computer will be cleaned up and I'll feel a lot more confident about what's where and data being backed up and stuff like that. So ultimately, this whole plan of digital minimalizing and cutting things back and better sorting and organizing is a very good strategy. I just feel so much better after doing that, it's just something, it's one of those things you look at and you go, why haven't I been doing that for a while? But anyway, that is what our approach happens to be. We'll go ahead and leave this video here. Let me know your thoughts about this. What are your plans or strategies? Have you thought about adding something like this in your life? Let me know all that in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you've not already done so, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.